to the I Love Buffalo podcast. Part of the I Love Buffalo network with your host, Josh Catry.
Welcome, good neighbors, to the I Love Buffalo podcast. I'm your host, Josh Catry. If you're new, a little bit about the podcast. We'll cover everything from Buffalo's news, business, corruption, ideas, politics, breaking stories, history, sports, jiu-jitsu, nature and the outdoors, fossils, birding, entrepreneurship, fishing, music, art, events, and all the things that champion the underdog city that we love and the good people in it. There's no topic off limit. Today on the podcast, this is a lacrosse town. We are a dynasty. Buffalo's music scene explores the idea of a unified awards show. The soccer team stadium plans are finalized. The history of Dingus Day, especially here in Buffalo. Acting Mayor Christopher Scanlon officially enters the 2025 mayoral race. And an update on Ralph Wilson Park. All this and more on this episode of the I Love Buffalo podcast.
Got the whole world sitting at her fingertips, and I'm trying to find out why I needed this. Can't say the right words, so I plead the fifth wall. She popped my line, and I fall for the better. She was smooth from the get-up. We all know how she controlled the weather. She was cool from the get-up. She's a bad, bad girl with the way she walks.
That right there was Max Childs. He has his own band, and he does kind of dueling keyboards with another member of his band. It's really awesome. They're great live. He's got a bunch of his own songs. That's one of his own songs. He's also part of Giant Panda Gorilla Dub Squad. They are playing here on the 19th in Buffalo at the Cas. We'll go over that a little bit later. He's a member of that. But that was one of his solo acts. He's from the Finger Lakes region, so just outside of Buffalo. But we're going to include musicians from the greater area, especially because he plays here in Buffalo quite a bit. So it's good to know who is coming up through the ranks here in Buffalo, putting his time in, putting his work in. And I have seen him live. He is excellent live. And as you can tell right there, that was one of his more popular songs called From the Get Up. In our first segment here, we're going to start with an updated story. We talked about this last time. There's a soccer team that is coming to Buffalo, and they originally had plans to put the stadium downtown. It looks like they finalized the plans for the Buffalo Pro Soccer Stadium, but it is not going to be smack dab downtown. It's going to be a 7,600 seat facility that's privately funded, and the stadium is going to be at the intersection of Elk and Lee Streets. So a little bit closer to the Valley or South Buffalo neighborhoods up the Buffalo River a little ways. That place needs a nice little revitalization, so this is really cool that it's doing it there as well. And it's going to be a $10 million project built on the site of the former Medaille University Sports Complex, now known as Queen City Field. Construction is set to begin this summer with the goal of opening in time for the team's debut in the USL Championship in 2026. The stadium aims to serve as a catalyst for development in the area, contributing to a bunch of other stuff in that district, like the Powerhouse and the upcoming Shot Club social golf entertainment project that's supposed to happen over there. So this is some cool stuff that's happening, and this looks like it's going to be happening now in the Valley. In other sports news, not sure if you realize this or not, but this town, Buffalo, is a lacrosse town. We are a lacrosse town. We have the most attended lacrosse team in the world. We also have a dynasty here where they've won a lot of championships. The Buffalo Bandits have set a record this season for overall attendance for any season of any lacrosse team ever. More than 150,000 fans filled KeyBank Center during the regular season, according to the officials, and that includes 5 sellouts. The sellouts are pretty much the same size as a Sabres sellout, to give you an idea. Their overall attendance figure this season was 166,238, and that's across the 9 regular season home games. It's a new league record, and they're making it to the playoffs again. So stay tuned for their playoff games. The Bandits have already clinched the top seed in the NLL, and they're going to host the first round of the single elimination playoff game on Friday, April 25th at 7:30 at KeyBank Center. I call them a dynasty because they are a dynasty. The Bandits are looking to win their 7th overall championship, and third in a row this season. They won the championships in 1992, 1993, 1996, 2008, 2023, 2024, and this could be a three-peat right here. So if you're interested in Buffalo sports and you've never checked out a Bandits game, definitely go check it out. They're a ton of fun. They're high energy, and we're great. And they're well attended. So it's a bunch of good things to check off here for Buffalo. And I tell this story often, but one of the craziest, wildest days I ever experienced at Pearl Street Brewing Company was after the Bandits won the cup the one year, I think it was 2008, and they brought the cup back to Pearl Street. And the whole entire stadium just followed them, and it was like this huge party on all the floors. It was wild. So rooting for them, but keep in mind, this is elite. We have the ability to experience awesome lacrosse right here, and they're going for a three-peat this year as they enter the playoffs. Okay, in this next segment here, this is a real cool thing that happened to me this week that I want to share with everyone. Someone brought the idea to me to do a Buffalo music scene unified awards show. So kind of like the Grammys or something like that. The idea was presented to me by local musicians Emily Scripps and Peter Kern, both from Savo Highway. I've worked with Emily on a couple other projects, and she was amazing to work with. And she came to me with a very organized and detailed idea. She presented it as an idea that could be just for the community. She wasn't really interested in, per se, making money off the idea. Just the idea that Buffalo should have a more organized and unified music award show. So one that included people from all different kinds of walks of life. They share with me that in Syracuse, they do something very similar. They call it the Sammys, Sammys, kind of a play off the name the Grammys. The Syracuse Area Music Awards show is basically what it is, the Sammys. And why can't Buffalo have something similar like the Bammys, Buffalo Area Music Awards show? And this would be sort of like a red carpet event with maybe a little bit of live music and give out awards to people in all different genres that are doing things in music the previous year to the award. Apparently, there already is some music awards in Buffalo. There's one that's very digital where you just basically vote online. But apparently, there's a lot of problems with that where you can vote for yourself many times. And there's not a good structure to the voting process. So it ends up being more like a popularity contest than it does some kind of merit-based award or some kind of system like that. So this idea was presented maybe as something we could do at Riverworks or Pearl Street or something along those lines, just to see where it could go. But before we dove into it too deep, I wanted to explore the history and see what awards already existed out there. And if there were any awards that already existed out there, what they were like. And I wanted to talk to the Hall of Fame, the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame, which is up near the Sportsman's on Amherst Street, and kind of get their take on it and kind of see what's going on, because I am not a musician myself, but I've never really heard of a big awards thing in Buffalo either. So we dove into it. The first person I reached out to was Dwayne Hall from the Sportsman's. So Dwayne has been around a long time. His venue, the Sportsman's, is truly historic. There's been so many really awesome artists that have played there, and you can go inside and look on the walls and just see all these people that have played there. I've also been in the Hall of Fame, which is next door to the Sportsman's, and that's really awesome too. But I didn't really know any of the history myself. So I reached out to Dwayne, and Dwayne immediately says, listen, talk to Tom Lawrence over at the Hall of Fame first and see what he has to say. He's like, I'm all about kind of unifying and bringing music venues together and the whole scene together under an umbrella. But let's see what kind of exists out there and not dishonor anything that's already existed. And we didn't know anything. Like Emily didn't know what existed. I didn't know what existed. None of us really knew what existed. So we reached out to the Hall of Fame, and Tom Lawrence gets back to me, and the dude blows my mind. He blows my mind on the phone. He was so knowledgeable about the history of music in Buffalo. There were so many interesting facts I didn't know. I was like, dude, you need to come on the podcast one of these days and share just a little bit of this knowledge, because it was really cool to know all these amazing guitarists and musicians that came out of Buffalo. Well, he lets me know about an award ceremony that already exists, and it's been around for a long time, for almost 40 years. And that award ceremony is called the Nightlife Award. And the Nightlife Awards used to be tied to a magazine called Nightlife Magazine, like 30, 40 years ago, that was super popular. And the Nightlife Magazine would be all the clubs and music scene all over Buffalo, kind of under the umbrella of the magazine. Honestly, when I first heard the name, I thought it was going to be like nightclubs, which back in the 80s and 70s, nightclubs were often musician clubs, not like just DJs. So it had a different meaning when it was started. And the Nightlife Awards was started by a man named Ed Honig. And Ed Honig was the person who also started Nightlife magazine. So he did both, and every year they would give out awards. Well, it turns out a lot of the musicians from Buffalo would often win the same award over and over and over again. And that didn't seem fair to all the other musicians that were trying to make it up. So they wanted to put a limit on it. So what Tom was telling me on the phone basically was that if you win the awards 3 times in like the 80s or 90s or whenever they implemented this, they wanted to put people into the Hall of Fame as a way to stop them from going on and winning. So I guess they did this, or it sounded like they did this. I might be getting this part of the story a little bit wrong because when I talked to someone else later on, it seemed a little conflicting, but it was something along these lines where they didn't want people winning the Nightlife Awards for too many years in a row, so they made the Hall of Fame. But then they realized the Hall of Fame shouldn't just be about those awards. It should be about everyone in Buffalo and all of the music. Somebody that's been part of the music scene for 70 years and she's been singing out in clubs this whole time. Well, she deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, even if she never wins a Nightlife Award. So they wanted to broaden that. And for some reason, they want it kind of separated, like the Hall of Fame and the Nightlife Awards now. The vibe I got was they didn't really want to put it together. But I'm hoping they'll reconsider because I think if we can form an alliance between a bunch of music venues and the Hall of Fame and an awards ceremony, we can create a really vibrant thing that we're all part of. And that was basically Emily's vision when she brought it to me. She didn't know if there was already existing awards out there, but she wanted to bring everyone in and reach out to all the different kinds of music scenes. So that's the other problem, I would say, with the Nightlife Awards. I wouldn't really call it a problem, but it's kind of like been rock and roll and metal and things like that, like country, and more geared towards the suburbs, when our greater area, the Buffalo greater area, should include all the artists like R&B and hip hop, rock, funk, jam bands, all this. So as I'm talking to Tom Lorenz on the phone, he suggests to me that I should give Will a call. So Will Schumeister, he's a drummer and he is also part of the Hall of Fame as well, but he runs the Nightlife Awards right now. So the Nightlife Awards were started by Ed Honig, but he passed away a few years ago. And rather than let it just die and have 40 years of history and just go away, Will Schumeister decided to take over the entire awards ceremony and run it himself. He also has a charity called Drummers for Homeless People, where he teaches music to the homeless people as hobbies and raises money in various forms. And what he is most concerned about is keeping that charity going. And now he's tied that charity into the Nightlife Awards. So most of us never heard of the Nightlife Awards, but it's actually pretty vibrant. Last year was at the Cove, which is a pretty cool music venue out by Transit Road out that way. It sold out like 800 tickets or 900 tickets or whatever that is. That's a good event. That's a nice, solid event. And it has all the history behind it up to this point. So I reach out to Will and we end up having lunch. And he is all about changing the awards to be more inclusive, to have more categories, to bring more people on board, to, be friends with the Hall of Fame and be friends with the music venues, maybe even create a series that kind of travels around between venues and then stops at the one award ceremony every year. There's a lot of different options you can do here if we all work together. Like I spoke with Andre from the Kaz and a couple other people in other music venues, and everyone was like, listen, if this is inclusive and we keep these original people that have worked so hard on this together, yeah, let's add on to it. Let's grow. Let's worry about making the music scene, one big scene here in Buffalo, grow really big together rather than look at each other like competitors. And for me, this is music to my ears because this is what I study. Collective problem solving, collective intelligence. I've talked about this in the segments on here about entrepreneurship. There's something called the iterated prisoner's dilemma, which basically proves that the best way for humans to work together is to collaborate. If we collaborate, we can build a big giant pie. So a lot of people think like an economy is, oh, we're taking some pie that exists and we're cutting it up into pieces and then we're fighting over the pieces. But that's not true. That's not what we're really doing. That is what you could be doing if you have bad systems. But if you have good systems, what you should be doing is baking a pie together, bringing ingredients, putting the ingredients in the middle and let's build this really big, huge pie together. The Buffalo music scene pie. And that could be stemmed off of this award ceremony, tied in with the Hall of Fame, tied in with all the good venues in the area that want to participate. And all of a sudden you have something to build a great foundation on. And instead of looking at it like, oh, we're going to always compete against the other venues, no. We're going to make the scene here in Buffalo just keep growing and getting better and better. And if all the venues work together, we can have something that's truly special here in Buffalo because the music's already there. There's already great music here in Buffalo. We just got to showcase it better and better, which all these venues seem to be doing right now. The game in Buffalo for putting on awesome live music events, the bar is being raised every week, and it's so cool to see for someone like me who just loves to go out to live music. I want to give you an example of like what a high trust group of people working together can do. Think about this. This is what the iterated prisoner's dilemma is. If you and I were going to work together and I gave you $500 and you robbed me, you stole it from me, I would never work with you again. But that would probably hurt you in the long run more than it would hurt me because now you don't get to work with my network either. If you try to come into my network group of people and friends and other people that have businesses together, and they're like, hey, do I trust that person? I'm going to say no, I don't trust that person because they robbed me. But if you do an iteration and someone pays you and you pay them back or work up to it or whatever, now you created a thing where you're part of that network and we can solve problems together. We can help each other out and we can get way, way farther together. This is not just some esoteric thing. This is real. People that work together in groups, high trust groups on big projects get way farther than individuals trying to do it by themselves. To me, this is what made me interested in music again. I've only been really interested in live music in the last few years. But the idea that 5 members or 10 members of a band all work together to produce something that's greater than the sum of themselves is collective intelligence to me. So I was drawn to that idea. And now I'm very drawn to the idea of possibly working with all these amazing people here in Buffalo and doing something special. So I'll keep everyone updated on this. Thank you to everyone who has been part of the conversations. And if you're listening to this and you're a band or a music venue and you want to be part of the conversation, please reach out. We're going to be having more meetings coming up and we're going to discuss some options of how we can grow this thing as big as possible. Because the bigger it is, the better it is for the musicians, the better it is for the music venues, the better it is for the Hall of Fame, the better it is for the award show, the better it is for Buffalo to bring people here to see our vibrant, amazing music scene that exists here. Shifting gears, we're going to talk about something more serious, politics. The Buffalo mayoral race, that's always hard to say. Acting Mayor Christopher Scanlon has officially entered the 2025 mayoral race, joining a growing list of candidates vying for the position. Everyone knows how I feel about group problem solving and labels. I talk about this often. Labels that are smaller than the size of the group hurt the ability for the group to solve problems. So when we divide up into Democrat, Republican, left and right, up and down, any labels you want to put on there, doesn't matter. Especially if they're not merit-based labels, it hurts group problem solving because it leads to the downward spiral of labels lead to echo chambers, which leads to groupthink, which can lead to tyranny. But when we solve problems in groups, we can do things a lot better if we first disavow the labels and second, look at how we're solving problems in the group. I would like to posit this idea out to anyone who will listen that there's a new way that we can run our systems of governance. And maybe Mr. Scanlon wants to do this, but actually participating with the constituents and the representative together to help solve our problems in a group. It feels like right now that people are very much excluded from the problem-solving processes and that we can use technology and a whole bunch of other new systems to be more included in the process that doesn't lead to the breakdown of labels and tyranny. There's a way to do this. They're called collective swarm intelligence systems, and they are amazing. If you've never heard about them, there are some being built right here in Buffalo, New York, and you're going to hear about them a lot because to me, they're some of the most amazing things that exist that I've ever seen. I would like to paint a fictional scenario for you to help you better understand how we can use collective intelligence to help us govern. So let's imagine there's a woman named Linda Steele. She's a fictional character for our story here, and she's running for office. What she's about to do is going to change the paradigm of what is expected of representation moving forward. It doesn't matter who Linda Steele is or what party she runs for. All that matters about her is this. When she gets to office, she's willing to decentralize her own leadership and actually listen to the people. That's it. She literally doesn't need to know anything about politics or anything else. She just needs to be willing to decentralize her own leadership and make her systems transparent. So imagine this. She runs for office. We nominate her. She gets in and she turns around and tells her constituents, tell me what to do. Like, let's use collective intelligence. I'm going to have conversations with you and we're going to talk about how to solve problems together. We're not going to vote because voting is binary and voting will always have labels in front of that and labels will lead to problems. What we're going to do is start with problems and we're going to ask everyone who has skin in the game, all the constituents or people that the problem affects, and say, how should we solve this problem in the best way? And when you start with the problem and you work in a decentralized fashion from the bottom up, you can play a game, an economy of ideas, and you can get answers from the crowd. So let's say it's all Buffalo. We could get all Buffalo to voice their opinion on what to do about things like where should we spend our tax dollars, or what kind of projects should we be working on together, or what problems in our city should we be solving together. We should at least have a voice, and right now we don't have a voice. So maybe one of these people that are running for office wants to do something different, and that different thing I would suggest is having conversations with the people as one group of people using collective intelligence systems. Maybe you don't have to listen to us exactly what we say, but you should at least know our opinion if you're going to be representing us. And these systems are fascinating. I will dive into them more in the future, but imagine this. Imagine Linda Steele runs for office and she wants to be totally transparent. How transparent? She's going to wear cameras every day. Every single thing she votes on, she's going to ask the people, hey, what should we be voting on? What bills do you want to write? Corporations are writing bills. How about we write bills as people? That sounds like a pretty good idea. Let us write our own bills and present them. It doesn't matter what office this is. It could be mayoral. It could be governor. It could be the U.S. Senate. It could be the U.S. congressperson. Any position could have close ties with their constituents instead of having close ties with the corporate money and the secret control and the lack of transparency that already exists. We can make our own system and connect to our representatives. And if they don't want to play on our system, well, we can elect people that will. And we can make a parallel system and do this. And for all of you that are in your mind right now going, oh, you're going to get Democrats and Republicans to agree. Yeah, it works. It really works. When you take people that are very divisive and opinionated and have them solve problems one at a time, instead of adhering to a whole label, you just say, hey, listen, we're going to solve problem X, and they work together, you get answers with very high confidence scores. So we're going to be talking about this more in the future. Maybe one of these representatives wants to do something different, or maybe you're listening and you want to run for office and you want to do it in a way that really represents the people. Consider using collective intelligence systems to talk to the people, because it is a different way. You create a new being, a magical being. Tim Urban calls it genies in his book, What's Our Problem? When you put people together in high trust systems, you can create genies. Yes, you can create golems too, which are horrible. So groups of people can be horrible or awesome, but the formula to make a genie not be a golem, it starts with disavowing labels when problem solving. It also starts with starting with the problem and letting all the people be creative in helping solve the problem. Not just vote between two choices, put your own creative answers into the mix, and let's see what the people prefer. All right, enough on this topic for today, but we're going to come back to that one, decentralization and running systems. It works. There's new ideas here. It is basically an entirely new branch of science called collective intelligence. And if you're listening to this podcast, you can be participating in creating new knowledge in this space. In our next segment, we're going to talk about the history of Dingus Day right here in Buffalo. So Monday, the 21st of April, the first Monday after Easter, that's Dingus Day. Dingus Day has some ancient roots. It actually used to be called Smigus Dingus, and it traces back to pre-Christian Slavic spring rituals celebrating purification and fertility. So this is like a Christian integration, which the settlers here in Western New York was a high Christian base, especially the Polish community. And this tradition was incorporated into those practices, commemorating the baptism of Poland's first ruler, Prince Mieszko. The tradition here is basically a form of courtship where the boys would either sprinkle water or in modern days use squirt guns and squirt girls, or basically tap them with a pussy willow stick that you get on Dingus Day? Well, this started off as a little festival here in Buffalo in 1873. And it was held at a lot of the church venues like St. Stanislaus Church. And then from there, just evolved. In 2007, the Dingus Day Parade was started in Buffalo, and that was established. And now it's a major citywide celebration everywhere. Buffalo is now recognized as the Dingus Day capital of the whole world, hosting the largest Dingus Day festivities in the United States. So if you're looking to go out and enjoy some good time on Monday the 21st, there'll be plenty to do that day. We will post more about the events upcoming surrounding Dingus Day at the end of this episode. In our last news segment here, here's an update on Ralph Wilson Park, formerly known as LaSalle Park. So phase 1 is nearing completion, and the initial phase of the park's redevelopment featured 100 acres of revitalized space all along the canal there that is on the waterfront of Buffalo. There is a 1-mile shoreline that exists there that used to be up on a break wall, and they brought it down with enhancements so people could interact more with the water. This includes a whole bunch of enhancements like a little pond that comes in, a little moat. There are elevation changes, new shorelines. There is new recreational fields, such as soccer fields with waterfront access. And the shoreline is no longer that cement seawall that used to be there. It's a natural slope with big giant stones there that protect against all the impacts of the harsh weather that exists there, but also creates new habitats for fish and wildlife that includes the shoreline as part of it. I'm really happy about that. I think it's really cool. I think it's going to attract a ton of birds into the small ponds and lakes there. I also think that the fish will have more spawning, and there's going to be like a little inlet and culvert installation with a 165-foot box culvert to facilitate water flow and fish migration between Lake Erie and the inner waterways that are going to go throughout the park. So this should be really cool. This was all made possible because Ralph Wilson left hundreds of millions of dollars to do this and to do this with the other parks specifically for Buffalo. So that was really kind and generous of his family. And I would like to honor that. You know, he bought the Bills at a risk back in the day. It ended up being a great investment worth a lot of money, but he didn't forget about the city that supported the Bills. And that park is going to be, it's going to be really awesome, I think. At first, it was kind of sad to see him take down the trees and some of the existing habitat that existed. But now that I see the plans, it looks really awesome. And it should be interactive for both sports and for people that like the outdoors and nature. So very excited about that. For our weekly business shout out, we'd like to shout out Bubba Bins and Cleanouts. This is owned by local MMA, kind of a little bit of a legend, Anthony Bubba Norton. He always put on some pretty good wars. I'd say locally, he'd probably be up for the Hall of Fame if we had a local MMA Hall of Fame because he fought a whole bunch of good fights, and I remember seeing quite a few of them. He helped out my family. We needed some dumpsters for my wife's family. He dropped them off on time, was super nice, great to deal with, picked them up, and I'd recommend him to anyone. Great service. So that's Bubba Bins Cleanout on Facebook. That's where you can find him. Or his name is Anthony Bubba Norton. All right, for the events for this week, we got a whole bunch of awesome events coming this week. At KeyBank Center, on the 15th, Sabres versus the Maple Leafs. On the 17th, it's the Sabres versus the Flyers. On the 16th, Musical Fair Theater is 7 p.m. Waitress and the Musical opening night. And that runs through 5/18. At Kleinhans, on the 17th at 7:30 is Joan Osborne sings the songs of Bob Dylan. At Shays on the 18th at 8 o'clock is R&B Invitation Tour featuring Joe, Eric, Bennett, and Musical Soul Child. On the 18th and 19th from 11 to 5 p.m. is the Spring Market, which is its second weekend here at the Richardson Olmsted campus. And there's also an adult Easter egg hunt, food trucks, face painting, and photos with the Easter Bunny and more. Admission to that is free. At Tiff Nature Preserve on the 18th at 10 a.m., there is the Spring Egg Stravaganza. That's Tiff's annual indoor celebration of animals that hatch from eggs. So come meet with animals like the Messenger Woods Wildlife Care team, and advanced registration is required for this. At the Buffalo Botanical Gardens on the 18th and 19th from 10 p.m. to 2 p.m. is Botanical Bunny Days. I used to do this as a kid. I would go to the Botanical Gardens on Easter and always walk around and see the Easter Bunny. So it's kind of a little nostalgic for me. Along with meeting the botanical Easter Bunny, there is face painting and a scavenger hunt as well to find carrots throughout the conservatory. The Stowe Lat Bar on the 19th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. is the 3rd annual Read It and Eat It Book Fair. It's a celebration of books and food featuring over 40 vendors. So if you like to read, hit up the Stowe Lat Bar. On April 19th, Cadence Marie Easter Egg Hunt on Facebook. This is hosted by Project Restore 716. It's known as Easter on the East Side, and it's free, totally free. The 716 5K Easter Egg Hunt. There's 5,000 Easter eggs spread all around McCarthy Park on Saturday, April 19th from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And you can come and look for the eggs and bring the kids. Each child will be provided with a plastic bag, bottled water, a basket, and then the eggs. So this is totally free as well. It's known as Easter on the East Side, and you can also find that on social media and Facebook. Easter is Sunday, 4/20. There's a lot of local restaurants offering brunch, such as the Curtis Hotel, Pearl Street, Hamburg Brewing, Riverworks, Salvatore's. There's just so many. Like, we could just go on and on. But they're filling up fast. I know Riverworks was over 1,000 reservations already, which is pretty awesome. So check that out. Make sure you're making reservations in time because reservations around town will fill up fast for that. And then, of course, on Monday the 21st is Dingus Day. It's the 19th annual Dingus Day Buffalo Parade. That starts at 5:30 on Memorial Drive, and then it heads down Broadway to Fillmore. There's over 100 floats, and everyone's dressed up with the red flags of the Polish Pride and all that, and their squirt guns and their little pussy willow sticks. There's also the North Tonawanda 5th Annual Parade that starts at 5 o'clock and heads down Oliver Street on the same day in the business corridor. There are numerous other Dingus Day events at different places around the city, and a full list can be found at dingusday.com. So go to dingusday.com if you want to find more festivities, and don't forget to wear red and say funny things in Polish, like Jaś mi buzi. All right, I don't even know if I said that right, and please don't critique me too hard. I'm not even sure what it means. I think it's a dirty word. Anyways, let's help each other solve problems this week. Remember, a rising tide raises all ships. Get your kids into jiu-jitsu. Come say hi to me on Tuesday mornings at the Buffalo Open Coffee Club. That's at 7:30 a.m. Seneca One Tower. All different business owners and people in tech and startups and people that are just working in business and trying to make connections and networking. This is a way to start group problem solving. The way to build trust is in person. We need to meet in person in real life and build relationships where we can combine the real world and the digital world and solve problems in even larger groups. We're going to leave you with a clip here from Michael Jordan, one of the best basketball players and sports figures of all time, talking about what failure means to him. Hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for tuning in. Here's Michael.
The thing that I remember the most about my father, and, I had him for 32 years, and I never look at it from a negative sense. Obviously, he was murdered, and, but the thing that I do remember all the time, I think about him practically every day. For a person like myself who live in the spotlight and is so critical, the thing he's always said, take a pause before you make a decision and say, what if? And the purpose for saying what if is that whatever decision you make, always either going to have consequences. Take a negative and turn it into a positive. Don't be afraid to fail. The best news in today that sells is negative news. And not that I live in a box to where I'm afraid to do things. As my father says, the what if comment is to be able to deal with the consequences of what decisions you make.